Hello and thank you for joining us on the news on NTA International. I'm Lami Ali. And now Lainka is the sign language interpreter. Let's begin with the headlines. Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting opens in Samoa with 3,000 delegates attending. Federal government receives reports of investigative panel on alleged corruption against Nigerian Correctional Service. Also on the news, a 3-day Russia-Africa Consortium summit ends at St. Petersburg. Now we begin with the Commonwealth meeting. Over 3,000 delegates from 56 countries of the Commonwealth convene for the first ever Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting to be held in a small island developing state in the Pacific. Frama Pangi reports.
The voices of people who are vulnerable to challenges in Fiji and other Pacific Island countries have been lent an ear at the 2024 Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting underway in Apia, Samoa. In her address at the opening ceremony, Prime Minister Fiame Mataafa says the Commonwealth has always championed the interests of Pacific Island countries.
This early gathering marks the beginning of a historic week for our Commonwealth Ainga, our family. Home to 1/3 of the global population, 60% of whom are under the age of 30. The 3 forums we are launching this morning represent the critical voices of our people, especially the women, youth, and our children.
But Afa says the Commonwealth also advocates for the hope of children rising with changing tides who are central to the discussion on peace and prosperity. She says the gesture acknowledges the voices of children and youth who represent 60% of the population of countries from the Commonwealth. Deputy Speaker and Assistant Minister for Foreign Affairs Lenora Kerekere Tabua says the event is an opportunity for genuine conversation as Fiji strives to promote an ocean of peace. The heads of government under the Commonwealth have been urged to listen to the cry for help through the platforms for youth, women and people at Chogom. Frama Panyi, NTA News.
The world's biggest nature protection conference is underway in Colombia, with the host country's President Gustavo Francisco Petro calling for urgent action and financing to reverse man's voracious destruction of biodiversity. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged delegations from about 190 countries to make peace with nature and show up a plan to stop habitat loss, save endangered species, and preserve the planet's precious ecosystems. The UN Chief's call came in a video message to the opening ceremony of the gathering.
Destroying nature inflames conflict, anger and disease, fuels poverty, inequality and the climate crisis, and damages sustainable development, green jobs, cultural heritage and GDP. A collapse in nature services, such as pollination and clean water, would see the global economy lose trillions of dollars a year with the poorest, hardest hit. The Global Biodiversity Framework promises to reset relations with Earth and its ecosystems. But we are not on track. Your task at this COP is to convert words into action. That means countries presenting clear plans that align national actions with all the framework's targets.
King Charles has warned of overwhelming climate dangers in an address at Australia's Parliament on Monday, saying the growing ferocity of bushfires and floods were unmistakable signs of a sweltering planet. The monarch told Australia that a long-time climate laggard with an economy geared around mining and coal is to assume the mantle of global leadership in the race to slash emissions.
In their magnitude and ferocity, as well as their frequency, they are new. The regular role of unprecedented events is an unmistakable sign of climate change, to which Australia is so particularly vulnerable. This is why Australia's international leadership on global initiatives to protect our climate and biodiversity is of such absolute and critical importance.
The 5-year-old sovereign is on a 9-day journey through Australia and Samoa, the first major foreign tour since his life-changing cancer diagnosis earlier this year. His environmental advocacy, which has seen him dubbed the Climate King, is sure to resonate in a country scarred by fires and floods. Now, the 3-day Russia-Africa Consortium Summit, organized by the UNESCO Center and Russia Consortium on Soil Activities, has ended at St. Petersburg, with the Nigerian contingent made up of vice-chancellors coming up with far-reaching positives. Charles Alpha had an engagement with some of the participants.
The challenges in soil protection and inadequate human and institutional capacity, experience to plan and implement subsoil activities to optimally mitigate and monitor the productive and degradative status of the soils gave rise to the just-ended Russia-Africa Consortium Summit at St. Petersburg University of Mining. Professor Ahmed Abubakar Kana and a host of Nigerian vice-chancellors, 46 of them led by the Secretary-General, Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian universities attended the summit in a bid to find answers to some burning questions.
We really need to come together and understand that this is our own, this is our resource, this is what God has given us, and we need to take it a lot more seriously so that we can develop the several competencies, the value chain in the subsoil.
The summit, which focused on sovereignty and subsoil regime in Africa, had academia, industrialists and government officials from 10 African countries.
Now we have our AMREC. Incidentally, somebody from Nigeria is in Addis Ababa. Arekosola is the head.
Of particular interest for this Nigerian delegation were the knowledge deal, government's regulatory framework, and how Nigeria can develop its mining sector.
One of the things about this summit, I went to St. Petersburg Mining University. They are ready to train our students. There is a plan for staff exchange.
Nigeria has been given the right to host the Africa Subsoil Summit in May 2025. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Democratic Party presidential candidate Kamala Harris is due to visit 3 battleground states on Monday. This include Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. The vice president's Republican opponent, former President Donald Trump, is on the other hand heading for North Carolina, which was badly hit by Hurricane Helen in September. Trump says presidential candidates should have to take a cognitive test in a swipe at Harris during an event in Pennsylvania, a swing state where he earlier made a campaign stop at a McDonald's. Harris says Trump's frequent personal attacks demeans the office of the president and accuses him of being unstable. Moldovan voters appear to have backed the Eastern European countries changing its constitution and committing to joining the EU by the thinnest of margins. Official data put yes on 50.31% and no on 49.69% on Monday morning, with over 99% of votes counted. Moldovan media said many of the votes yet to be counted had been cast abroad and would likely lean towards yes, as the Moldovan diaspora is broadly in favor of closer ties with the EU. The knife-edge nature of the vote has come as a shock to many. The referendum had been widely expected to comfortably pass in the country of 2.6 million people, which borders Romania and Ukraine. BRICS leaders and heads of delegations arrived Kazan to participate in the 2024 BRICS Summit in Russian Federation. BRICS leaders and heads of delegations, as well as those from partner countries, will participate in the 16th summit on Monday, October 21st. According to Moscow, 32 countries have confirmed their participation, including the leaders of China, India, and South Africa. A BRICS outreach summit with the heads of member states and leaders of the executive structures of the Euro-Asian Economic Union, the Commonwealth of Independent States, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization will also take place.
Common prosperity and progress, we are confident that this 15th BRICS summit will in the end enrich and inspire our work towards session.
Chad's opposition, Transformers Party, says it will not run in the junta-ruled country's legislative and local elections on December 29th because the result was decided in advance. Frama Pangi brings us the details.
Success Masra, one of junta chief Mahatma Idris Deby Itno's fiercest opponents, claimed victory in the May presidential election, in which he secured 18.5% of the vote after alleging Deby's team would rig the result. The Transformers will not participate in the legislative elections in December, Masra told supporters at a ceremony for victims of bloody anti-junta protests which took place 2 years ago. To participate in these elections amounts to condoning a result that has already been entered in the computers of the opposing camp, said the 41-year-old economist who was for a while Prime Minister under Deby. The CCAP opposition group also said last month it will boycott the election. After a new constitution was approved in a referendum in December, Deby was elected president in May in a vote the opposition boycotted and international observers say was not credible. Deby had been proclaimed transitional president by fellow army generals in 2021 after his father, Idris Deby Itno, who had ruled Chad for 30 years, was killed in a gun battle with rebels. Deby promised an 18-month transition to democracy but extended it by 2 years. Opposition figures have since fled, joined Deby, or been silenced. Despite uncertainties, difficulties and hurdles, the process is coming to an end and the commitments that were made will be honored, Deby said on Friday, confirming the election date. Frama Panyi, NTA News.
And up to 1,000 women and children needing medical care will be evacuated from Gaza, says the World Health Organization's Director for Europe, Hans Klug. Hans Klug said in an interview that with Israel besieging the war-devastated Palestinian territory, it will carry out 1,000 more medical evacuations within the next months to the European Union. He said the evacuations will be facilitated by the WHO, the United Nations Health Agency, and the European countries involved.
That I heard this morning from my special representative of 1,000 more medical evacuations within the next month to the European Union. As of today, this office, yes, facilitated 600 medical evacuations to about 8 countries in our region. Turkey by far has been doing the most, but also Belgium, Norway, Romania. But then I'm telling, why only 8 countries? I have 53. So I'm going to appeal.
WHO's representative in the occupied Palestinian territories, Rick Pippercorn, said in May that about 10,000 people need evacuation from Gaza for urgent medical care. The WHO in Europe has already facilitated 600 medical evacuations from Gaza to 7 European countries since the latest war began in October 2023. Nigeria continues to move closer to comprehensive cancer care, where patients find hope beyond pain. This is achievable as the National Institute for Cancer Research and Treatment, NICRIT, builds capacities of primary and secondary healthcare givers to handle cancer-related trauma. Uche Gochuku tells us more.
Cancer, a diagnosis that shakes lives, leaving patients and families traumatized.
I remember I cried and cried and cried. And the next question I asked, Doc, how long do I have to live?
The experience of Gloria Orji, a breast cancer survivor, represents that of many patients at the news of their diagnosis.
There was no psychological, a psychologist talking to a cancer patient. Unlike when you have a social worker or a psychologist who will say, okay, we'll be talking to you once in 2 weeks, once in 3 weeks. If for any reason they don't see, they will follow up. The doctors don't have time for that.
A It is to bridge this gap and ensure health workers offer more than just medical treatment that this 3-day training is initiated.
Considering the level of trauma suffered by cancer patients, is aimed at equipping health workers with the needed knowledge to provide solutions to such incidents.
From empathy to counseling, health workers are learning vital skills to ease the emotional burden of cancer patients.
With being part of patients that are going through a lot, being able to sympathize and empathize with them is a big thing for me.
Before, I don't know how to follow some pathway on how to bust a news to patients in the ward. This time around, I can be able to say, yes, I have that knowledge.
The training spans across states in the North Central Zone in Nigeria. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
The Defense Headquarters says it has not announced the appointments of any senior officer as the Acting Chief of Army Staff, contrary to speculation. A statement by the Director, Defense Information, Brigadier General Tukur Gusau says the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, is currently on a well-deserved rest as part of his 2024 annual leave. The statement notes that Major General Abdusalam Bagudu Ibrahim, the Chief of Policy and Plans, is providing routine briefs to the Chief of Army Staff in accordance with standard military procedures. The Defense Headquarters urges those spreading the false rumors to desist, noting that the Chief of Army Staff is hale and hearty and will soon resume normal duties at the end of his leave. You're still watching news at 7 on NTA International. It's time to take a quick break. We will be back with more reports. Do stay tuned.
We all get that party where they get your back anytime or day. E go carry a matter for head like say na your own. Now so GoTV tanda for your side as your party for correct enjoyment. We not a tear pocket. For this GoTV Super Plus Golden Window, you fit touchlight all the 380 Premier League games, correct local shows, and better film. We day for you. Make your sharply upgrade or recharge your GoTV on top Super Plus to enjoy every today. The Super Plus Golden Window don't come out money now. Not do yourself, oh. GoTV. Love it.
Thank you for saying. Speakers at the 11th African Biblical Leadership Initiative have called on leaders to enhance their knowledge, show empathy, and engage in critical thinking to address challenges faced by citizens and promote developments. Haman Jabani reports that the conference has the theme Value-Based Leaders Model for Africa.
African Biblical Leadership Initiative, established in 2010, aspires to become a non-partisan gathering of ideas and trusted voice through Africa that will bring transformation of value-based leadership, which will promote excellence in service delivery and advance economic development for the people. Speakers say having knowledge and understanding for leadership are important for leaders. This, they say, can be attained by reading, for not merely a pastime, but fundamental activity that cultivates the intellect, broadens perspective, and enhances decision-making capabilities. A true leader must be marked by willingness to give up personal preference, deny self-indulgent attitudes, and surrender even the ultimate for the higher prize of serving God and humanity.
Strengthen the faith of Christianity here in, not only in Nigeria, but throughout Africa, and it can extend to the rest of the world.
And I believe that in all situations, Paul said, we should pray and show humility. God will forgive us and heal our nation, our continent, and our world. But leadership matters.
The value of justice is the foundation of godly leadership. It ensures fairness, equality, and protection for all, especially the vulnerable. As leaders, we must promote justice in our communities.
In his address titled Value-Based Leadership Model for Africa, former Chief Justice of South Africa say much like the struggle for independence, Many African countries are still engaged in a desperate fight for their survival, while level playing ground is absent in all aspects of life.
We have all that is required for us to be successful and to be a continent that leads the whole world. We are the richest continent. So let this be the time, let this be the clarion call for value-based leadership to arise and lead Africa to where she is destined to be.
The 5-day conference will also look at value of justice, integrity, wisdom, and social harmony as sub-themes. Hamad Jabani, NTA News.
The investigative panel on alleged corruption and other violations against the Nigerian Correctional Service has completed the first phase of its work and submitted its report to the Minister of Interior. In its executive summary, Secretary of the committee, Dr. Uju Agomo, indicated that so far the committee has not found any evidence that Idris Okunaev, widely known as Bobrisky, spent his jail term outside the custodial center in Lagos. The committee, however, found other procedural breaches bordering on preferential treatment against officers in charge of the custodial center.
Of Mr. Okunaev Idris from the medium security Kirikiri, Lagos to the maximum security Kirikiri, Lagos, being a first offender, violated Section 16(4)A and Section 16(4)B of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019. The panel also found that Mr. Okunaev Idris enjoyed several privileges while in custody, both at the medium security and the maximum security custodial centers, which include especially the following: furnished single cells, humidifier, lots of visits by his family members and friends as he desired, visit by his family members and friends held inside the office of the in charge of the custodial center, floor rug, self-feeding, designated inmates to run errands for him, access to fridge and television, and possibly access to his phone.
Some other officers were also indicted for similar cases of alleged corruption and procedural breaches. The Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, has therefore vowed that recommendations of the committee will be implemented, while asking the committee to proceed with the second phase of its work, which is to look into possible reform of the service.
The Nigerian Correctional Service is a very, very key institution. And therefore, any form of corruption, any form of malfeasance, any form of abuse of power, torture, cruelty, inhumane and degrading treatment will never be accepted.
In continuation of its work, the committee is expected to hold public hearings from December 12th to 20th in Abuja. The National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, is addressing the issue of human trafficking under the project From Policy to Action by implementing the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking in Nigeria 2022 to 2026. The policy-level meeting in Abuja brings together government and non-governmental organizations as well as international partners. Amina Baba-Suleiman reports.
The escalating human trafficking cases in Nigeria present concern for the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, with particular focus on victimization of women and children. In response to this disturbing trend, a strategic meeting was convened to evaluate government policies and combat the scourge of human trafficking in the nation. Director General of NAPTIP, Binta Adamu Bello, stressed the necessity of enhanced collaboration and the formulation of effective strategies to tackle this crime.
Define our strategies in the implementation of the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking in Nigeria 2022 to 2026. Through this platform, we seek to ensure that our work remains targeted, effective, and in line with the global best practices.
The government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu remains steadfast in recognizing human trafficking for what it is, a heinous crime.
The meeting emphasized the crucial role of interagency cooperation and information sharing to disrupt trafficking networks effectively.
Our mandate as the custodian of the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in person, especially of women and children, is to enhance capacity to tackle these challenges.
We are going to partner deeply with the agency to be able to combat this heinous crime that is degrading the lives and potentialities of our citizens.
You investigate, you also attend to the needs of victims.
The gathering emphasized the essential contribution of community engagement in preventing efforts. It also called for local initiatives to raise awareness among citizens about the risks of trafficking. Amina Baba Suleiman, NTA News.
And sports update is next with Suleiman Musa.
Team Nigeria Scrabble, consisting of 15 players and 3 officials, left Nigeria on Monday to participate in the Pan-African Scrabble Championship in Kigali, Rwanda. Before their departure, Engineer Toki Aka, the president of the Nigerian Scrabble Federation, NSF, expressed his confidence that Nigeria will secure victories in both the individual and team events of the championship.
We can still win this Africa Championship for the 14th time, knowing that we've won 13 out of 14.
To football, after an impressive performances in the first 2 games of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup in the Dominican Republic, the Nigerian Flamingos have secured a spot in the next round by scoring 8 goals and conceding only 1. Sport enthusiasts are encouraging the Flamingos to continue their current form for success.
Expect them to go fly high, put up a fight in every match, and make Nigeria proud.
They did well. It's a good step in the right direction because we have the right footing, the right foundation, support of the Nigerian Football Federation, created an enviable environment for all the leagues to thrive.
Meanwhile, Super Eagles and Bayer Leverkusen forward Victor Boniface reassured fans after a car accident following his game-winning goal in their Bundesliga match. He shared photos of the crash on his social media platform. With Sport Update, Suleiman Musa, NTA News.
And that's the news at this time on NTA International. We thank you for watching. I am Lami Ali, and Hannah Olainka was our sign language interpreter. Do have a good evening.